Today's lesson is on multiplying fractions by whole numbers, and we'll cover pages 29 to 30. One of the strategies that we're going to be discussing today is that multiplication is like repeated addition. Question number 1 asks you to write each product as a sum. So if they give us 3 times 1/4, we are going to need to write our fraction and add it 3 times. So that would look like 1 out of 4 plus 1 out of 4 plus 1 out of 4. Now, for question number 1, they're not asking you to solve it, but if we were to solve it, what would this equal? This would equal 3/4 because the bottom number stays the same, our denominator will not change, and we add our numerators together. So add the top, the bottom stays the same. For question number 2, they're going to get you to do the opposite. They will give you a series of sums, so sums are additions, and we need to turn it into a multiplication as a product. So we're going to write it as a multiplication sentence. So how would I write this as multiplication? This would be 3 times 1/2. Your fraction will be the second number in your multiplication, and the 3 is just how many times it is added, or how many groups we have. Question number 3 is going to ask us to solve, so we're actually finding the product by first writing it as a sum. So if they give us 4 times 3 out of 5, our first step is to write this as an adding sentence. So that will be 3/5 plus 3/5 plus 3/5 plus 3/5, because we're going to add it 4 times. And then we need to add these together. So when we add them up, our denominator is 5 the whole way across. Then when we add them together, our denominator, our bottom number, is going to be 5. And to find our numerator, or the top number, we need to add all the other numerators. So that's going to be 12. Now, we are going to regroup to put this into lowest terms. So if we have 12 out of 5, this is an improper fraction, which means the top number is bigger than the bottom number. We want to turn this into a mixed number, which gives us a whole number with a fraction left over. So how many groups of 5 are there in 12? 2. There's 2 groups, so we're going to write a whole number 2, and that will take up 5. So what fraction do I have left over? 2 and 2/5, because this 2 is like the 10 out of 5 plus 2 out of 5. So that's how we can simplify it, just to review going through a mixed number. They might also give us something like 2 times 3 out of 4. So my first step is to write this as repeated addition. So I would write 3/4 plus 3/4. So I'm figuring out there's 2 groups, so I add it twice. Then I need to add these together. So that would give me is 6 out of 4. We add the top, the bottom stays the same. My final step is to simplify, which means I need to turn this into a mixed number. So I need to start by figuring out how many groups of 4 are there in 6. There's 1, which leaves me with what fraction left over? 2 out of 4. And you could also simplify this down to 1 and 1/2, because 2/4 is the same as 1/2. For number 4, they're getting us to multiply the fraction with the whole number. So the way they've set this up is if we have 4 times 3 out of 7, we can imagine that the 4 is actually like 4 out of 1. So it's going to be multiplied by the top number. So we're going to create our next fraction by multiplying our whole number by our numerator and leaving the denominator the same. So the 4 only multiplies by the top number, not by the bottom. Now, I'm going to finish the multiplication. So this will give me 12 out of 7. And then I'm going to simplify. So I know that we know that there's one group of 7 in 12, right? So it's almost like we're breaking this up into 7 out of 7. And then what would we left? Well, 7 plus what gives us 12? 5. So the 7 out of 7 turns into the whole 1. And then 5/7 is what we have left. So it would be like 1 and 5 out of 7. We could also think of going from 12 out of 7 to 1 and 5/7 with a picture. So if we were drawing a fraction, the bottom number tells us how many pieces this should be out of. So this should be out of 7 pieces. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we'll add on another one. So that should give me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces. Now, I need to shade in 12 pieces. So I would look and go, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, I still need more pieces. So I can't add on to this or cut it into smaller pieces because then they wouldn't be 7s. But I can draw a second whole shape and divide it into 7 pieces as well. And now I can shade in more. So I had 7 in the first one, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So now I've got the whole group here. So this is like one whole chocolate bar, let's say. And I have 5/7 of the second chocolate bar. Every piece is 1/7 of a chocolate bar, and I have 12 pieces. So 12/7 is the same as 1 and 5/7. For question number 5, we're doing almost the same thing. They're asking us to find the product and simplify our answer. So if we have 3 times 4 out of 6, what 2 numbers am I multiplying? So 3 times 4, which gives us 12, and then my denominator is going to be 6. Now I can simplify this. So how many groups of 6 are there in 12? 2. So I get a whole number 2, and there's no groups left over. So it's just 2. Number 6 just says to find the product, so the work's going to be fairly similar. If we have 4 times 5 over 4, we need to start by multiplying the whole number and the numerator. So 4 times 5 is 20, and my denominator is going to stay as 4. And then I need to figure out how many groups of 4 there are in 20. So 20 divided by 4 is 5, and there's no fraction left over, so my answer is just 5. What you might notice as we continue going through is if we do A times B over A, then we are going to get A times B on top with A on the bottom, and we know that A divided by A is 1, right? So the A kind of cancels each other out, and we're just going to be left with B, right? Because if you take A and divide it by itself, it equals 1. So it's like having 1 times B, which is the same as just B. Question number 7 is going to switch our wording up a little bit. So they're going to start with words. So like 1/3 of 6. And we know that means 1/3 times 6, right? So then we can figure out our multiplication. So if we're doing 1/3 times 6, what two numbers are we multiplying? 1 times 6, which gives us 6, and the 3 stays on the bottom, and then we can simplify this. So 6 divided by 3 is 2. So our answer, 1/3 of 6, is 2. Our last part is going to have our investigation. So investigation 1 is asking about when you multiply a fraction by a whole number, does the order we multiply in affect the answer? So the first example they'll give us is 8 times 1/4. So we could write this as 1/4 8 times. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? So if we were to add this together, what would our new numerator be? This will be 8 over 4, which is the same thing as 2. Then the second way they get us to solve this is to go 1/4 times 8 of 8, which is the same thing as 1/4 times 8, which gives us 8 over 4, which is 2, right? We could also think of 1/4 of 8 is almost like 8 divided by 4, right? So we have 3 different ways that we can look at this. Do we get the same answer each time? Yes, we do. So your job is to try out all the other examples that they give you to see, do you get the same answer no matter which order you put it in? And then you should find out this thing called the commutative property, which means you can change the order for multiplication and it will not change the answer. Investigation number 2 says the fractions 1/3 and 2/6 are equivalent. Does multiplying by 2/6 give you the same answer as multiplying by 1/3? So if you multiply by an equivalent fraction, does it give you the same answer? Now the first way they get you to test this out is by solving 4 times 1/3 and 4 times 2/6. So let's see. 4 times 1/3 gives us, so this gives us 4/3, which we can then simplify to be one group of 3 and then 1/3 left over. Now, 4 times 2/6 is going to give us, so it gives us 8 over 6, and then we're going to figure out how many groups of 6 are there in 8. So there's one group, and how many pieces are left over if we take that group of 6 away? 2 out of 6, and then we can simplify 2/6, right? If we divide them each by 2, that would give us 1 and 1 out of 3. So yes, we are still getting the same answer for both of these. From 1 and 2/6 to 1 and 1/3, the 1 doesn't change because it's one whole group, right? So if we were to draw this out like a picture, we would have two 6, so 2 out of 6 pieces, but if I then divide 2 out of 6 by 2, that gives me 1 out of 3, and I can see that if I put some of these together, so then I only have 1 out of 3 yellow groups instead of the green groups that are there.